Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin Sokoloff, joined by my co-host, Ronnie Ward. Ron, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going great, Kristin. Got a lot going on. I'll provide updates later, but I saw you recently moderated an event. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was great. So it was the Oregon gubernatorial for the GOP. So basically we had governor hopefuls up on stage and we were asking them questions. The cool thing is, Ron, we had asked our audience members to submit the questions. And so these were actually, catering to our audience, which is very unique. And so we saw a lot of success with that.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, you looked great. I saw the social media posts and if you need an MC, folks, we got your girl right here.
It was fun. Actually, I have to say, Ron, and we need to build this into a full podcast, but the event, I generally am putting my own questions together, etc. And I was told, just show up. They're going to be ready for you. Well, they weren't. Luckily, I got there an hour early. I was putting together, we had the questions, but they were very rough, straight from the audience questions. So I had to go in and wordsmith everything. And I'm talking the show was starting and I was just finishing getting everything together. I don't like to operate that way, but I will say it showed me what I'm capable of is working under pressure and the ability to just be agile. And I had to pat myself on the back for that one because that was extremely stressful.
Chris and I operate under the 5 P's of performance. Pre-planning prevents poor performance.
I know. Hey, that's where I'm like, I generally, if I wasn't told, like, it's all going to be ready for you. And that, that actually goes back to where I would say, next time I'd like to actually have that in my hand before I go, or at least in my inbox, right? So that's where the inspect what you expect piece. I didn't do that. I put some blind faith in who was running it, because I have a history with them and they're great, but things happen. And so it did cause some chaos.
Wow.
That nobody noticed but me.
Yeah, it pays to be prepared. That's for sure. And you made you learned your lessons from it. So there's a takeaway, and we're just getting started, folks. Kristin, what are we talking about today? I'm excited about this.
Yeah, and we've been talking about doing this for a while. We're going to talk about fraternities and really the hazing that goes into it. I mean, millions of Americans have experienced this on college campuses. So we're going to dive into, fraternities, leadership, brotherhood, lifelong connections, but also the negative side, like I mentioned, hazing, alcohol abuse, and sometimes tragedy. Yeah,
that's right. So Greek life has shaped political leaders, CEOs, and entire professional networks. Yeah. But for others, they represent, as you said, hazing and alcohol abuse. We're even going to get into some sexual abuse. And we will warn you when we're getting to that section. But we're going to look at the positives. And of course, there's many, but we are going to look at that dark side because, hey, the name of the podcast, The Dirty Side of Leadership,
we have
right?
To. We would be doing the audience a disservice if we didn't. So today we're going to look at the good, the bad, the ugly of fraternities and what leadership lessons we can learn from it. And let's start with the positive, Ron.
Okay.
Let's go glass half full here. Okay. Fraternities have been to your point, they've been part of American college culture for nearly 200 years, and they do turn out a lot of leaders in prominent positions.
Yeah, and when they're functioning well, they can produce, everything from a cohesive network to great leadership skills.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the leadership development that goes into it, right? Like the fraternities, they almost operate like small organizations. They're managing budgets, recruitment, event planning, conflict resolution, and that community relation aspect of it too. So that really is this real world leadership experience and exposure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you learn skills that sometimes you don't learn in college, like public speaking, networking. There's some benevolence factors that we'll talk about. So these connections matter. Alumni networks is often the open door to law, business, politics, finance. And there are a lot of people out there. They're going to take care of their fraternity brothers. And of course, we are going to touch on sororities. But the reason we didn't do both is because that it would be confusing, even though there's similarities. So we are going to touch on sororities as we continue on.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see sororities in the news in a negative light, in that dirty side light, as often as we see the fraternities. But there's definitely content there, right? I'm talking in social media terms here. Let's dive into philanthropy and service. We touched on this. Many people don't realize that fraternities raise millions for charity every year. I mentioned earlier, they host fundraising events, charity runs, blood drives, and those community service programs.
Yeah, and some even require volunteer service. Each semester they have to do so many hours. So that is leadership through service. So there's certainly positives to this.
Oh, yeah. And you touched on that brotherhood piece and, support systems that are built in. And I think that's probably one of the main draws for people. College can be isolating, and fraternities can provide the social support, the mentorship, and a structured community. Yeah,
and those relationships last a lifetime. I don't know how many times I've talked to friends who are in a fraternity. They're going to a fraternity brother's wedding. There's business partnerships, and they support each other through major life events.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into the dark side. Your favorite, Ron. No, I'm just kidding. You're usually the positive guy, but we do like diving into the dark side of things. Hazing and loss of individuality. Ron, you mentioned, can we just talk about this? You mentioned this off camera, and you're like, I was not going to go into a fraternity because I wasn't going to let anyone spank me. What with those paddles?
This is very unique, Kristin, but I'm not a joiner, and I never have been. I get that. I don't know if that's a good quality or not, but when I was in college, I had my own dojo on campus. I was teaching martial arts on campus, and these guys wanted me to join a fraternity, and they were going to haze me and everything. Spank is the word I use because they did that, but there was all kinds of humiliating things they were doing. So anyway, they started trying to pressure me. I just looked at it. I said, you think I'm going to let you dweebs spank me? I'm not joining. And that was that. They didn't.
I don't know why. I just find it so funny when you say that.
I know.
I mean, it's seriously though, because that's what's happening. Ron didn't know I was going to bring that up, but it's too good not to, because it's so true. And I appreciate that about your personality. I have that in me as well. Like, I literally I didn't watch Yellowstone for years because everyone was so into it. I'm like, nope, not watching it. Then eventually I did and loved it. But anyhow, okay. So let's dive into hazing here, Ron.
Yeah, let's do. And let me give a unique story. I didn't know I was going to have to tell the spanking story, but
sorry.
So it was interesting. Before we recorded this episode, I called a friend. This is not the story I'm about to tell, but I'm going to tell you another story about me helping him get out of the hazing process, which was interesting. So don't let me forget that one, Kristin.
I won't.
But this is unique. We all know that fraternities have matching colors. They've got Greek symbols. There's symbolism and all of these different aspects. So when I was teaching college, I was an adjunct instructor. I was teaching criminal justice, so one of the classes I taught was gangs, and it's very interesting. So I had my students, I told them to select a gang, and basically you're just telling about it, their symbols, their day-to-day life, even crimes. So one of the students, they had to submit to me for approval, and I'm expecting Crips, Bloods, MS-13, Hell's Angels, that type stuff. I look down, I'm going down the list, this guy has Chicago Police Department.
Wow.
So anyway, of course I engaged him. This is all online, but I ended up calling him. But when I looked, I'd never thought of this in my life. But when we looked at it, they had matching uniforms. They had, training. They all went through the same thing. They even had unique codes, the 10 codes and all that. So there were comparisons. I had to laugh a little. But this was one of those people who had majored in criminal justice with this view they're going to change the world of policing. And once we talked, I suggested they go into another major. They were so anti-police that I'm like, I know you think you're going to go in and make these changes that you want to make, but life doesn't work that way.
No.
So anyway, he and I had a little bit of a heated exchange over that, but I did have to laugh that he definitely, there was about 6 out of 10 characteristics that matched up.
Wow. So did he end up writing that paper?
No, I got him to change.
Oh,
I made
you
him
got him
pick
to
a different
change
guy. I wasn't going to
it.
accept that one.
Interesting.
I know. I could have, but I also, he was going way too critical of the police department.
Yeah.
And I wanted to help, I just wanted to help him deal with reality. So he was saying Chicago police is worse. So I said, so you're saying it's worse than Crips, Bloods, and I named all these crimes. And I said, pick another one.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is interesting because you think about it, you do have a brotherhood aspect to it, right? The police departments, especially on the East Coast. I know Chicago's Midwest, but very, very interesting.
And for the record, Kristin, not to interrupt, but Chicago in the 70s, 80s was known for corruption, like one of the most corrupt police departments, allegedly, in the United States.
Okay.
So, again, I thanked him. I said, you made me really think and all that, but I geared him toward another one.
So there was some validity there, but you challenged him to think outside the box, I guess you would say. No, that's interesting. Very interesting. That's when I think it's interesting that we realize structure alone doesn't define something. It's the behavior that does. And that could really play into, there's so many brotherhoods that is not just gang related. So, and that's why we're talking about the fraternity aspect here. It's really powerful. And hazing is where behavior crosses the line. And it's typically defined as humiliating or dangerous initiation rituals used to test or control new members. And Ron, you know this, it can include forced drinking. I've seen a lot of like Datelines, 48 Hours, where they're going into where students or fraternity members who were pledging have died from the forced drinking. And then there's the whole element where we'll dive into that too, but they don't want to, because of that brotherhood, they don't want to call 911 because then they're worried that the fraternity could get shut down, right?
Absolutely.
Sleep deprivation, that's a real issue there. Physical exhaustion, verbal abuse, humiliation. There's just so many components.
Yeah, and we're even going to get into some sexual abuse. Kristin, I should have prefaced my previous story about the Chicago Police Department. The whole chapter was a comparison between fraternities and gangs. That's what got, this whole thing started. So I should have mentioned that. And there were amazing similarities to fraternities and gangs. So I should have made that clear earlier. And that's when I said choose a gang, and the person chose the police department. I didn't see that coming, by the way.
Yeah, no, that would be definitely an interesting approach to the assignment. What I just mentioned also, Ron, it's more common than people think. When we were doing research for this episode, it shows that roughly 70% plus really of fraternity and sorority members report experiencing hazing behaviors.
Yeah, and just as a quick side note, because Kristin laid a foundation for fraternities, we will touch on sororities as well. Kristin mentioned it. It's usually not as violent, and it's actually more psychological.
Typical for women.
Let's face it. It really is.
It's true, yeah.
So everything from the psychological pressure includes, talking down to them, your appearance, you're fat, you're this, you're that. And then social exclusion. Either you join or you're going to be, shunned. You will not be invited to anything. And then they focus a lot on servitude. There's a lot of forced tasks, but they really want to make it clear that you are our servants. We're the authority over you. Appearance control. We'll get in I told you we're going to touch on some of the sexual hazing. We're going to get into that, but appearance control is important. Yeah. And then performance-based expectations. That's similar to fraternities, but the distinction we would make is that the sororities is a little more psychological than the fraternities.
Yeah, definitely. Same underlying dynamic, the control and conformity really is the theme here.
All right, we're going to step into hospitalizations and injuries. So we're going to talk about fraternities now. Hazing's not just embarrassing. It can end up with serious medical harm. Exactly what Kristin said. Guys, keep in mind, as we're doing this podcast, we only know what we know. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine how many things? And when I studied about sororities, the girls are very hesitant to report anything, especially when you get humiliated. The last thing you want to do is talk about it.
Yeah.
So, but it also is very prevalent with the guys because there's a code, and it's just like, I will say this, police departments, a lot of people have a code, and the code is that you don't rat out your partners or your brotherhood or sisterhood. So let's look at a few things that when it starts to go over the edge. There are extreme physical workouts. In 2025 Texas A&M case, pledges were reportedly forced to perform hundreds of squats. Some collapsed and were hospitalized due to severe muscle damage. They just had them keep going until you literally just fall over. This is a big one, Kristin, and we in the show notes, by the way, we gave you some references, folks. If you want to watch a documentary or read about it, there's some things in the show notes that are really good. They're well done. But forced alcohol consumption is a big one with fraternities. Yeah. Dangerous drinking games, physical punishment, sleep deprivation. And just as one side note, where I went to college, the guys told me a story about forced alcohol consumption where a guy literally passed out in the snow. Now, there's one on a documentary, so folks, don't think I'm getting it mixed up. It just so happens they drug this guy back in before there was any real serious damage. His face was red, but there is one where someone, died from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that the one where that girlfriend left him out in the snow and he died?
I think it is. I think that one is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that is a real concern here.
So Kristin, before we get into sexualized hate, I did promise a story, and this is one where I called my friend.
You told me not to forget, and then I did. So, I'm glad you remembered.
So we'll get it in there because I might forget.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to let him spank me. Kristin likes that. He decides to do it. I tried to talk him out of it. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I knew this guy. Now, he's a tough guy, football player, but sleep, I'm telling you, the guy had to have 8-9 hours sleep. It's just a reality.
Oh, yeah.
So he goes into this pledging, and when we get to the sexualized hazing, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But he was doing pretty good, and I'm talking about, push-ups. They would have to eat, and someone, I think, died of this or at least got poisoned, but have to eat like a tadpole out of a pond. Things like that. They were eating crap, but they would keep them up days at a time. And he came to me literally 3 or 4 days in. He called me Ward all the time. He goes, Ward, you got to help me get out of this. And so we had this clandestine meeting on campus at night. He had to sneak away. It was kind of cool. It was fun back then. But we're having this meeting. He said, I'm going to tell him my mom's sick. He said, she has been sick, like with the flu. I said, okay. And he said, will you back me up? Is there going to be talking to you? I said, yeah, I'll back you up. He goes, I'm going to go home Thursday. I'm just going to leave. And so I just said, yeah, I'll back you up. And it really was interesting. He went to them. I don't know what was said, but I'm sure it was, very emotional. So he leaves hazing and he just says, yeah, I'm not going to redo it. I'm out. He really does go home, misses classes and everything. So I remember they were coming to me, sure enough.
Oh, really? Like, hey, where is he?
Yeah, I almost said his name just now. They would go, how's his mother doing? And I go, she's stable.
Oh, my gosh.
So anyway, they were very concerned. I'll give them that. They were very concerned about him. But I was like, so I told him on the phone, I said, you just remember that friendship. He goes, yeah, friendship runs deep. No, every time I go to Richmond and speak, he's done really, I just said where he lives. Wasn't Richmond, Virginia, folks.
Richmond from Richmond.
He's gonna be listening to this. He has done extremely well. And so when I'm in Richmond, he buys my dinner. Don't forget about that. I know you're listening. And he always says thank you because, we used to ride my car more than his. Because I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, it's my appreciation. I said, for what? He said, always taking your car. But what he didn't know is, if he drove, I could have a few. I could have a few drinks.
Oh, there you go.
So I had an ulterior motive. But anyway, he can keep buying my dinner if it makes him feel better.
Oh, my goodness. That's hilarious. Hey, I love that, though. And that really does show you how much he wanted out.
Oh, he wanted out badly.
And for those that need 8 or 9 hours of sleep at night, that's me too. So I understand. That would make someone psychotic if you're not getting enough sleep. All right, let's dive into the sexualized hazing. And quick note, if this topic is a sensitive subject for you, feel free to skip ahead. We're only going to be on it, 5-10 minutes max. So fast forward a little bit. But we're going to dive into it. Ron, why don't you give us a start here?
Yeah, sexualized hazing has been documented in fraternities and, of course, sororities as well. We will touch on this. But it's things that include forced nudity, simulated sexual acts, coerced sexual contact, degrading acts meant to assert dominance. And I do have one more brief story, and this is the same college I was talking about, my friend. But early in the hazing, they would tie a string around the guy's penis. And they run it up through the shirt, and it's got a pin attached. And you had to get 100 girls to sign your document. And of course, back then we thought it was hilarious because some of the girls were sorority members, so they're sisters from the Brotherhood. They knew what was going on.
Oh, they know.
So we would literally. No. I remember in the cafeteria one time, this girl led this guy. She's got his clipboard. She's walking around with this pen. She would speed up, pull on it, and he's grimacing.
Gosh.
And then she would go, I can't sign that here. Let me go over here. And, of course, we're cracking up because someone whispered to me. I didn't know what was going on. They go, oh, he's got a string tied around,
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, some of the girls would play it up, and these poor guys had to get 100 signatures. I don't know how sore they were, but...
he really wanted in that fraternity, apparently.
Gosh. And like I said, the fact... And I'm going to be honest with you, Kristin. I'm not proud of this, but we thought it was hilarious.
I would have too back then.
They could have pulled his penis off, and we'd been like, oh, look at that. So it tells you how you think. My frontal lobe only developed a couple years ago, and I did a post I thought was hilarious, Kristin. I put I said, I'm excited to report y'all my frontal lobe just developed, and I got almost nothing. So anyway.
Oh, that's sad. No, it is funny because if you think about it, they say it's fully developed at 25. And so most people are done with college by then. And so they're making some poor decisions. And you could blame it on that. But that's wild.
Tell us a little more about sororities.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I'll just make it brief here. There's also sexual coercion and or pressure. Sexualized games or expectations. And then going back to that appearance-based humiliation, which does include nudity.
Yes, and I read where, like at frat parties, girls are made to wear certain things, everything from short skirts with no underwear, low cut see-through things, and this is all designed to sexualize the girls. And you can imagine when you're at a co-ed fraternity party,
right?
That is, listen, I'm not saying anything justifies, but I'm saying you become more of a target when you do that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and then there's a lot of sex acts that, are done just to demoralize people, pretend you're doing this and those type things. And you can imagine, but there was one that they had to use a banana simulating a sex act. So there's a real degradation that happens in the female world with that. And more females have psychological problems from hazing than males.
Yeah, that makes sense. It will last. Ron, what's the goal? Like, think about it. Like, what is the objective with doing these things from a psychological standpoint?
Well, let me say this. When I was at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, when we would pepper spray the students, there could be, the class may not even be that close or unified. On that day, when you get sprayed, let's say you and I are partners, you have to lead me. I have to perform these strikes and punches and all that after I've been sprayed. You take me to the decontamination station. You spray the water. You're talking to me. Mm-hmm. We bond in a way that's very unique. And then we always do a group picture. You know, their eyes are all red. And there is always a difference in the class unity after that day. And we know it. Yeah. So the idea of this is it's like the Marine Corps or anything else. You break them down and then you build them back up, but then there's this bonding, this unity. Now, that's the positive side of it. Here's the problem, and we know this. We're going to get into some psychological experiments, folks, later, and you don't want to miss, not this episode, but in a later episode, you don't want to miss it. But what happens is, as you're talking about, you know, we said that the frontal lobe isn't developed. So these guys start to get off on having this authority. So they're demoralizing, and the problem is they don't mean for it to a lot of times, but it just gets worse and worse and worse. They're also showing off in front of the brothers and sisters, like, look at me, how cool. I'm going to make them do 10 more. I'm going to make them pull their pants down. I'm going to make them. So there's all of these dynamics that come into play when you have authority and you're not equipped to have authority. And we see it. We see it when young managers get promoted a lot of times, or even other managers. They've never had authority, and all of a sudden they've got authority. Yeah. And they can't handle it. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell, that psychological degradation, but then that authority role, that authoritative psychological, I've got authority over you. And anyway.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because I've experienced that in the workplace even. Like even when we had like a horrendous employee and we all went through the traumas of this person, right? And it did bond us. And so, and for years, employees would bring up these stories about this person. And the 7 of us on the team were the only ones that had that experience. So you have that shared experience. Exactly. And even if we all got together today, it would probably come up and we would have that bond. And so I completely understand that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's well put. Well put.
Yeah. Okay. Medical consequences. And these are the ones that really do generally make it to, like I said, the 20/20, the Dateline, the 48-hour. So, and these aren't minor issues. Alcohol poisoning. You mentioned the muscle breaking down from being overly worked. What was it? Squats? They were required to do hundreds of squats.
And by the way, that's very common. Even where I went to college, it was like push-ups, and you would do them till you just couldn't go anymore.
Yeah, that's, I mean, have you ever done, like, we did push-up contests in PE because we were trying to get the record for the school. And I did end up getting the record for that. But I remember someone going, try to shoot the basketball now. And I was like, that's going to be easy. And my arms went, bleh. Like I couldn't even shoot the basketball after doing all those push-ups. So it really does wipe out your muscle. What about dehydration? And, anytime you're consuming a ton of alcohol, and then there's the sleep deprivation we've mentioned. So they're probably drinking coffee or energy drinks. Then you're going to have major dehydration. And then internal bleeding, that's one that we saw in our research. And then concussions. And then this is on the extreme end, but it absolutely happens, rape. And we see that in the reports as well.
Yeah, and there's different types of sexual assault, but even the guys experience some sexual assault. It's just that it seems that it's more of a psychological damage for women than men, but it's still horrible. I'm not minimizing it.
Yeah.
And the levels might be different. But so let's look at the darkest, worst part, and that is hazing death statistics. Mm-hmm. So research shows at least one hazing death occurs every year in the United States. Think about that.
Wow.
Could you imagine you send your kid off to college and, they die from hazing? Yeah. Since 2000, there were 5 deaths per year on average. Now, that's reduced a little bit simply because of documentaries, simply because of podcasts like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think until these shows that I've mentioned started doing bits on it, like parents were unaware of what they were sending their kids into. And things changed over the years also. That's something like the sorority. Maybe they're going to the same fraternity or sorority that the mom or the dad went to in the 60s or the 70s. Like, it's very different today.
Yeah, and we won't get into the documentaries. There's one on Ohio State, the campus, and this story is the cover-up through everything from the other students to the administration. It's unbelievable. So, again, you will have some things you can research in the show notes. There's been over 330 deaths since 1838, and 82% of those deaths involved alcohol in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not talking beer or wine. I mean, this is generally they're having them chug hard alcohol, vodka or whatever it may be. That's what I've been seeing in my research in this. And these are, they're 18 to 20-year-olds dying during initiation rituals. Just think about that.
And folks, there have been some court cases, but as we said, we probably don't even know the half of things that went on. But there's just quickly, there was Timothy Piazza, and that was against Penn State. That was an alcohol-related death. There's over 1,000 charges there. Maxwell Groover, that was on LSU's campus in 2017, that was forced high-proof alcohol, died of poisoning. I should have mentioned that Timothy Piazza died as well. Stone Foltz, Bowling Green in 2021, extreme drinking, had a blood alcohol content of 0.394. Wow. And then Caleb Wilson, Southern University, and that was 2025. That was recent, and that was physical assault, which resulted in manslaughter charges. So these are all deaths, and it would be interesting. We didn't go to see the actual findings. A lot of these things are settled, but scary stuff for sure.
For context, the blood alcohol levels. What is the permittable to drive level?
That's a 0.01 in most states. Some of them are 0.08. I said 0.1, 0.08 up to 1.
Okay.
And when you're talking 394, that's comatose area. That's
right.
That's just crazy.
I was just trying to think. I'm like, what? That's wild. Wild.
Yeah, it really is.
So you can see it's poison. Why hazing happened, we dived into the psychology of this. And, it's like with all of this negativity, why does hazing continue? And Ron, there's a few drivers here you're going to go over with us.
Yes, we've touched on the psychology, and we're going to do some other episodes in the future. But a few of the key drivers, and this is something we didn't mention, is the traditional mentality. In other words, people love to have these things that's passed down. I remember even when I went through the police academy, someone told me a secret that someone was going to pop out of the trunk when I did a car stop.
Oh, really?
And I walked by and just pushed the trunk down. And so the person stuck in the trunk. They thought I was so cool, but I was tipped off.
Oh,
People love to say, back in my day, we went through this, but it's a shared situation that they go through. And they also use it to justify, well, we went through it, so you got to go through it as well, or you're not really a brother or a sister.
That group psychology.
Group psychology, loyalty overrides judgment. You're going to say, yes, sister, yes, brother, whatever they're saying. And, man, we've talked about it so much. Matter of fact, we did an episode recently about, that group mentality. Yeah. Power dynamics is when the older members have authority over the recruits, and it gives them a real sense of importance that they have that authority. And then the alcohol culture, it's almost just assumed hazing's going to involve alcohol. It's just pretty simple, and it's passed down. So anyway, 82%, as we've said, of hazing deaths involve alcohol. Scary stuff.
It really is. And I feel like that's more with fraternities than the sororities. But we definitely see it on both sides. But
you're right.
Heavy with the fraternities. We're going to bring it to the leadership lessons, which we always like to do towards the end, to leave y'all with something. So what can leaders take from this, Ron?
Yeah, the positive side as we started off, we've tried to be balanced on this, but good fraternities demonstrate leadership development. There's all kinds of lessons from support to, operating under stress. There's a lot of things you learn. Accountability. You are accountable to your brothers and sisters in these. And then there's that sense of community that we've talked about. Your network is your net worth. And these people certainly have a sense of community.
Yeah.
But we've already talked about it. Bad fraternities demonstrate abuse of power, groupthink, and moral disengagement.
I don't know how they make it through. Like, you think about, this is like a full-time job, it seems. Especially if you watch some documentaries, you'll see like the being in a sorority or a fraternity. It's a ton of time, and you're actually going to college, right? Like, I don't know how they balance it all, but those that can make it through without, going down the wrong path, it is something that is, it's pretty amazing, actually. I wouldn't have been able to do it with all these distractions.
Yeah, no, it's true. I'll tell you what, let's ask, I forgot to mention how long I think they're a week for most of them. Do hazing. We're doing live research, folks, right here.
Yeah, what is it called? Okay, it's like something week. Oh gosh, what do they call it?
So, wow, fraternities 4 to 12 weeks.
Jeez.
Extreme cases 12 to 16. Wow, but there are a lot that's only a few days. I remember, I think it was a week. When I was it might have been 2 weeks, but I think it was a week. So anyway, pledge week is the general term.
That's it. Yes.
But yeah.
Pledge quarter.
Anyway,
I know, my husband did one for a week or two. They had a nickname for him already and everything, but he was like, he's kind of like us. He doesn't like the group think aspects of it. And he was like, nah, I'm good. So I'm proud of him for getting out of that. Okay, let's talk about the future of Greek life here. Universities are really pushing back. We saw this in our research. And then we're also seeing anti-hazing laws. A lot of those are unfortunately coming from tragedy. So we're seeing the deaths. And then from that, we are seeing these anti-hazing laws, criminal charges, suspensions of entire systems. So there is accountability.
Yeah, before we give the colleges too much credit, look what had to happen before they began to get anti-hazing laws and criminal charges and all this stuff.
Had to be death first.
And of course, the local Congress had to step in with, to get laws. So it's way, way overdue. These universities, their reputation gets damaged, and then all of a sudden they are, trying to regulate. So
right.
I'm not impressed, Kristen. I have to be honest with you. I'm not impressed at all. This should have happened many years ago.
Absolutely. And, I think what's probably really frustrating for fraternities and sororities is, the ones that run appropriately, which there are plenty, when something like this happens and it makes it to the news, it makes them all look bad. And so it's like, don't paint us all with one brush. I'm sure there's dozens, if not hundreds of fraternities and sororities that are ran very well and don't even have these issues brought forward. So I wanted to make sure I touch on that too.
Kristen, I have a recommendation for all fraternities and sororities. So listen up. I think you should have a faculty member assigned that you get your hazing rituals approved and you have some oversight, because you're not old enough or responsible enough to handle that authority, to regulate yourself and regulate these activities. So I think if it's an approved fraternity, and I'm sure maybe some universities are doing this, but this isn't original. I thought of it while we're talking. But imagine if you did have a faculty member who could oversee, who could do some at least spot checks and those kind of things. And I think security should be on high alert when they know it's hazing going on this week.
Right,
I think you need increased security presence, and things need to be looked at. And maybe it would have saved some of these lives. And I know people think, oh, it's all fun and games. But you imagine, I just can't imagine if you lost a child that way.
No.
And when I watched the one on Ohio State, and I've been in this for a long time, and I watched some others. It is so heartbreaking. That seems like the most useless death that
Yes.
you could possibly suffer. And the way the other guys left one guy laying on the couch,
Yes, I watched
passed
that.
out. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And it's so, I think, to your point, it's so avoidable.
Right.
And that is the maddening. I mean, there's so many aspects of it that are maddening, but it's like, wow, he's right there. Clearly something's wrong. They didn't want to get in trouble, right?
Right.
So I'm glad you bring that up.
Any takeaways, Kristin? Final thoughts?
No, I love your call to action on that. And I just think, there needs to be more oversight. I'm with you on that.
I agree.
Yeah, more oversight and more people that stand up and say, this something's not right, right? Like, and that's not, I think people don't value that enough. We've talked about this, Ron. It's not even like a brown nose, or it's just like common sense. Like, if you see something that isn't right, stand up. You don't have to go say something. You don't have to escalate it to authorities. But why don't you bring it up within the fraternity or within the sorority?
Yeah, or go confidentially to faculty. Like, do something.
Yeah.
Do something. Well, look, everyone, we really appreciate you. If you happen to know someone that has a high schooler, they need to listen to this before they go to college. Parents need to hear this because parents, I recently was with someone, and when they talk about college, they just don't understand what's about to happen. And I can see that innocence with parents. Everyone wants to think their child is perfect and all that. I get it. But get them to listen to this episode, or get them to watch one of the documentaries. We would love to prevent this from happening in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that you put this together. It's a great topic and not talked about enough in this manner. So thank you, Ron, and thank you for everyone listening to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. Please like, rate, and tell others about us.
That's right. All right, everyone, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.